Welcome back to the Sports Rock Show.
Spar Rock.
Now we're going to talk about, in my opinion, the most irrelevant draft in the history of the NFL. Let me ask you this, okay? I think this was a draft with a lot of good, solid players. I think this was a draft where you're going to see a lot of guys start 8, 9, 10 years. How many guys in the first round do you think will be legit Pro Bowlers more than once? Doug.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think most people would consider it wasn't a sexy draft because you didn't have the quarterbacks, the running backs, the wide receivers. There was some depth at wide receiver, maybe a little bit at running back. Quarterbacks, there wasn't obviously coming off last year's of luck in RG3,
Right.
and even Tannehill for some respect.
Aren't you forgetting somebody's name there?
well-
Mr. Wilson?
Well, yeah, but he wasn't a sexy pick. He was a third or fourth round draft pick.
Yeah,
he
he
wasn't.
to a playoff.
Yeah, and that was great. How does Russell Wilson play this year? I don't know.
Who knows?
Right.
None of them may play with the shit this
But
year.
I mean, yeah, I think there's some legitimate players that were picked in the first round that could be Pro Bowlers for multiple years. But looking specifically at the Cleveland Browns draft, is Kiki Mingo a legitimate All Pro for a couple of years or years to come? I don't know. I can't say that. What concerns me is the fact he was drafted to play a position he'd never played before. That worries me.
Yes.
When you have, I don't like drafting players that high and then you have to transition them to a place or to a position they've never really played, and say, well, they're great athletes, so just transition. That doesn't always happen. No second round pick. I don't feel bad about not having a second round pick. That second round pick was used last year on Josh Gordon. No problems with that.
None whatsoever.
And I think, quite honestly, to interject just real quickly here, I think he's going to be a fine receiver.
I think he's already been
He's gonna be a fine
a very good receiver.
He's already got a year under his belt. That's a plus for Cleveland.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is.
The third round selection of McFadden. I don't know that much about him. I don't know if he was the highest rated cornerback on most people's draft sheets when the Browns drafted. Apparently, there's something they like about him, so I can't really say much about that other than I hope he turns out the defensive back that they think he is, because they could have drafted Milner, they chose not to. So this was their first string defensive back that they took. So I have more of a problem when you get down to the later rounds, and they draft Armani Bryant, defensive end from a small school in East Central Oklahoma.
Which we'll talk about him in the near future.
He was arrested twice.
Here, we're going to talk about him now.
Yeah, well, yeah, let's go
Yes, we're
right now.
right on the line now.
He was arrested twice and for small amounts of weed. I'm not really too concerned about all that, quite frankly, but he was a guy picked at 217 that may have been easily picked as an undrafted free agent. He may not have been drafted by anybody.
Absolutely. There you go. He may not have been
At
drafted at all.
218, the Eagles take a defensive back that is a need for the Browns. Whether they drafted one in the third round or not, I don't care. You can't get enough good corners in this league, not now. Was Jordan Poyer, defensive back from Oregon State, that I watched in the Senior Bowl. I watched in the Senior Bowl practices. He was first-team All-America. I cannot tell you why he dropped from a second, third round projection to a seventh round pick. I can't tell you that. I don't know why. I'm not privy to that information. Apparently the Eagles were comfortable with taking him at 218, one pick after the Browns. But that bugs me, and then drafting Gilkey with their last seventh round pick, another small school guy that I watched in the Senior Bowl as well. I don't think he can play tackle in this league. I don't think he's athletic enough. But he may serve as quality depth. And Pinkston and Laval aren't certainly all pros by any stretch.
Right.
Maybe this guy can kick inside and maybe, if not start, maybe he certainly can add depth, because you always need depth on the offensive line. But I think there's two small school guys that the Browns front office, Joe Banner in particular, and Mike Lombardi, are arrogant enough to say, I'm smarter than you guys. We'll take these no names because we're just smarter. We just know better. The trades that they made, they traded with Pittsburgh, and everybody's like, oh, fuck, you traded with Pittsburgh. What the hell are you doing that for? They thought they got a better deal. Now, they said, no, there was rumors that they could have made trades with a couple other teams in that vicinity. They chose to deal with Pittsburgh. Once again, I think the arrogance of Banner and them stand out is, we're smarter than them. We'll trade, we'll get a third round next year. Well, I get trading a fourth rounder for a third rounder. But this team needs depth now. They claim there was no players they liked in the fourth and fifth rounds. Well, apparently there was players that they liked in the sixth and seventh rounds. They didn't trade those picks. So, yeah, there's no question that the draft on paper, and that's all we can go by on any draft picks. I mean, you can look at Baltimore, look like they had a great draft. I think Pittsburgh looks on paper having a pretty solid draft. But those are paper picks. We don't know how those players will perform. You look at Cleveland's draft on paper, it looks like crap. Now maybe that if Mingo turns out to be a stud outside linebacker, defensive end, rush guy, then it was a hell of a pick. If McFadden turns out to be a solid cover corner in the third round, then it was a solid pick. You just don't know.
My opinion on the draft as far as the Cleveland Browns are concerned is this, and Doug hit it right on the head. You have people in there that think that they're going to make an impact now because, quite honestly, you were a has-been or you're a wannabe. And they're making these deals. And quite honestly, you cannot go... There were too many quality players that were left out of the draft picks that Cleveland could have had. And they've left us short again, fans. If you're a Cleveland Brown fan, you got left short again. I think, quite honestly, owner-wise, the guy wants to win. He says he wants to win. He's got the money invested in it, but I think he's surrounded himself with people that are like what we've been surrounded with since we came back into the NFL. And quite honestly, before we even folded to Baltimore, inadequate people running the draft. I have no explanation for some of the things that were done. The only thing I can say this right now is like basically what they're saying is like wait till next year.
I can say this. I don't have quite as negative outlook towards things, I guess. I think the Browns set themselves up for
Wait till next year?
what I believe, in their opinion, is going to be a run at a Johnny Football or an A.J. McCarron or a Teddy Bridgewater next year. Evidently, Michael Lombardi's, it's no secret that he didn't like the Brandon Weeden pick, and he still feels that Weeden is not going to get the job done. Even though they didn't take a quarterback, which I think that,
I don't think it should.
I don't think they should have either, and I think you're saying they're so dumb. I think that if they were so dumb, they would have taken a quarterback. I think they were smart enough to realize no quarterback in this draft, in my opinion, was worthy of a first-round pick. And E.J. Manuel's the only quarterback that went in the first round, which I think that was a bit of a reach. But anyways, there's no quarterback in this draft, in my opinion, that is going to be anybody's franchise quarterback. I don't think there's any quarterback in this draft that's going to become a Hall of Famer. I don't think there's any quarterback in this draft that's going to win multiple Super Bowls.
Why are you laying all this on the quarterback as a pick?
Because what I'm explaining is I don't think that they were that dumb, because they knew that and stayed away from the quarterbacks. Now, were there guys in those middle rounds of value that they could have taken? Absolutely. I think at safety that Pittsburgh took with the fourth round pick, the fifth round pick. I think he was worthy. I think the Browns should have taken him, to be honest. But let's say next year Weeden has a terrible year. The Browns are able to use those picks and move up. Well, you say next year, here we go. Who were the Browns going to take in the fourth or fifth round this year that would have made them playoff contenders? Nobody.
I'm not saying they would be
playoff
contenders.
The Browns are not going anywhere this year. Let's face facts. So why not set yourself up for the future? It's not like they're one player away.
When the hell is Cleveland's future going to be now? We came back, 95?
99.
99.
Okay,
we came back. We haven't been shit
Okay,
since
do you
then.
think that this regime is intentionally trying to lose this year?
No,
I don't.
Actually, I think this regime...
I, for one, am
I'm questioning this regime.
I don't question... Honestly, I feel more comfortable about the Banner-Lombardi pairing now than I did the entire time they've been here. because I think they made a great deal in going out and getting Devon Bess.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
I
with
like
that.
Kiki
I don't have a
Mingo.
problem with that.
Regardless if a Kiki Mingo turns out to be a all-pro player or not, they liked him. They had their convictions. They wanted him. They took him. They didn't jump the gun and try to trade up or anything like that.
They were not indecisive. I'll give
No,
you
they
that.
weren't
They were not
indecisive
indecisive
at all. Are
I
they
give you
fucking
that.
nut jobs? Absolutely. And if you read the article on
Yeah,
Grant,
they're definitely nut
whatever,
jobs.
There's a link on our Twitter feed.
Yes.
The Grantland article that we're referring to a lot of a writer that had access or thought he had access to the Browns for a few days around the draft, and really paranoia set in amongst the brass of Cleveland. This guy didn't get shit for an article, and he'll tell you about it in the article. But I think it's safe to say that the Browns future, the Cleveland Browns now rests on the arms of Brandon Weeden.
absolutely it does.
And the new offense.
Yes.
Now, Brandon Weeden, he was in the wrong offense, bad coaching, whatever you want to call it, last year.
Yes.
He's under a different offense, a different philosophy of one that should play to Brandon Weeden's strengths of throwing the ball down the field. Now, whether or not that works, whether he's that guy that can do that can run this offense, if he can't, they have set themselves up, I think, and I agree, that with those trades, they have set themselves up that if Weeden fails, and he's on a one-year option,
As he should be, to be honest.
that they have ammunition to move up to go and try and get that guy,
Yes.
whoever that guy may be,
Yes.
next year. Now, if Weeden comes out and performs fantastic and they go 8-8, would they still consider that moving up? They still have that option of like, okay, well, we liked Weeden, maybe we could give him another year, but we're going to go get that guy now because we really like this guy.
Or maybe it's not even a quarterback. Maybe it's somebody else.
Yeah,
Maybe
but-
it's a stud corner or a stud linebacker.
But
or,
even if it is a quarterback that does give you the ammunition to do that, I give you that one.
my thing is, I don't think, first of all, you're trading a 4th and 5th round pick for a 3rd and 4th round pick. That's not bad.
No.
Like I said, I like that safety that Pittsburgh wound up getting. I think Cleveland probably should have taken him. But do I think that he's the difference between a 7-9 or 6-10 season and a 10-6 or 11-5 season?
Nah,
Fuck
probably
no.
not. Probably not.
So what makes
Probably
the
not.
difference?
It's probably not.
Okay.
Probably
Now,
not.
if he turns out to be the next Troy Polamalu, obviously you're going to be kicking yourself. But I don't have a problem with that. My only problem with what this regime has done to this point is they have not addressed, in my opinion, the defensive back issue. They've got Leon McFadden. Everybody in ESPN loves him, okay? I don't really know much about him. I know that he's small, but he can make up for it with speed, and he's got some ups and this and that. That's a position on the field where you can get away with being a little bit short. Joe Hayden's only, an inch taller than him? I mean,
Yeah, he's
or
only
2.
5'10" or 5'11".
Yeah, it's not much.
He's done.
Okay, so now I'm not saying he's going to be the next Joe Hayden. It'd be great if he was, but
No, we don't.
I don't think they adequately addressed the cornerback position or the safety position, but
Well, they never addressed it in free agency.
no,
That was a concern.
they didn't. And there were certainly some good ones out there. We talked hard about Keenan Lewis, and I think even Antoine Winfield, although he's older than 30, which doesn't fit there or whatever. That's my biggest issue. Everything else this regime has done, for the most part, I'm okay with. So I don't think really there's a whole lot to be down on them for yet. They've drastically improved this team. Yeah, there's always next month. But I think they've drastically improved this team. This team is going to, I think, put some points on the board. They're going to get after the quarterback. There's going to be games where they're going to get, quarterback's just going to throw bombs and they're going to give up 40-some points. But I think there's going to be some games where they're going to get at the quarterback, sack him 6 or 7 times, and win 14-7 or 21-10.
Well, they certainly have addressed the defense. There's
They
no question
have.
about that.
I like Ray Horton. I like North Turner. I think there's a lot of things to be positive about the Browns.
One thing you just said right now, those 2 names you just mentioned, in all honesty, them being in Cleveland organization right now make me happy.
Yes.
Because those are 2 people right there, in my opinion, that are quality. quality above quality, because if you bring North Turner as your offensive coordinator and you bring Ray Hartnett as your defensive coordinator, you have done already improved your team automatically
Right.
with what they add, even if it's pieces
Yes.
of shit. They'll make them better.
Now, is Lombardi
I'm not
and
all
Banner?
that impressed with what they did with their draft, but hey,
I'm not all
we'll
that.
see.
I'm not all that impressed either. But I don't.
We'll
think,
see.
I don't think they did anything fatal either. They didn't trade up to get a Kellen Winslow. They didn't trade up to get
No.
a Brady Quinn.
No.
You know, they didn't blow a pick on a Courtney Brown.
No.
Well, I mean, you don't really know where you're going to go with Mingo, but they didn't. I don't think they did anything to that level of stupid. I think Mingo's
I'll
going
give
to
you
be
that.
a solid starter in this league. Whether or not he's going to quite play outside linebacker like they hope he can, because like Doug has said before, you drafted a guy to play a position he's never played before. And when he did play outside linebacker a little bit at LSU, he didn't play all that well. So you don't know what you're getting, but I don't think he's going to be a total bust.
Well, he's gonna play in a lot of sub packages to where he rushes the quarterback.
Absolutely.
At least his rookie year.
Yes, but one thing about Barcavius Mingo, I think he's capable of dropping back and covering. I think he can do
Well, I
it.
think he's athletic enough.
I think he can do it.
Oh,
I think that's going to be a problem for Jabal Shear.
My motto for the Browns, with as many newer players and stuff they have, it'll be up to Chud and North Turner and Ray Horton to coach them up.
Yes, it will. Absolutely
and,
will.
get and put them in positions to where they're going to play their best football.
Now, as far as Banner and Lombardi being borderline psychotic with paranoia, is that an issue? I think it's a bit of an issue, but they're erring on the side of caution. So I don't think that's all that bad.
Well, when a guy that works for the team comes walking into the
I
room
agree.
and you erase Mingo's name because you don't want anybody to know that.
I agree. That's
I mean,
a problem.
That's a little paranoid.
It's messed up.
I'm
but-
not saying there's not a lot of paranoia amongst the other 31 teams in the National Football League,
Right.
because there probably is, but
That level, probably not.
you know.
But I think right now, I mean, you can't really grade their draft because they barely had one. This is one of those drafts you have to give an incomplete to. I think there's a lot of question marks.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's on paper. You can grade a draft by players that you see on paper. It's like, well, yeah, I know, I've heard of him,
Right.
I've seen him play, he looked pretty good, or whatever. But you can't legitimately grade a draft until 2 or 3 years down the road.
Right,
You're
absolutely.
just not going to know how these guys are going to turn out.
And if next year they use those picks that they got to trade up and get a stud player who turns out to be a 5-6 time Pro Bowler and leads them to the promised land, you're going to be thinking, my God, Mike Lombardi and Joe Banner are geniuses. So,
It's going to take landing the quarterback.
it is.
That's where it's going to be.
Well, I think right now, I think we're all in agreement on one thing when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. It's quarterback.
Yes, it is.
I think that's the key thing.
And I don't think we'd be having
This year
I don't
was
think-
not a quarterback draft.
I don't
at
think,
all.
no, you're right. And I don't think if Brandon Weeden was 22, we're having this discussion.
No,
I
not
just
at all. Not at all.
I think if you look at what he did statistically as a rookie,
He didn't do bad. He didn't do bad.
Brand-
Brandon
guy's thrown
Whedon's
for almost 3,500
numbers
yards.
were very similar to Ryan Tannehill's. Yet there's a lot of optimism surrounding Tannehill that's not surrounding Whedon. And it's solely because of age.
What's he,
You're
4 years?
absolutely right.
Brandon Whedon's what, 4 years
Brandon
old?
Weeden
probably
will
five
be 30 at the beginning of the season or sometime during the season.
Won't be 31.
No, it could be 30.
Will be 30.
No, Tannehill's probably 23.
23,
I was
24.
gonna say, it's like,
The problem
Well,
with
that's
Whedon is
6 year
even if
difference.
Whedon goes out and lights the world on fire next year, you still need to look at getting a quarterback.
oh, there's no doubt in my mind about that.
I mean, because you're only going to get, even if he, like I said, if he goes out there and plays great, you're only going to get 4 or 5 years of high-level play out of him if you're lucky to get that.
Well,
I just
but
want
if you
him
think
back
you
in 4
can
or
get
5.
4 or 5 years of high-level play out of it,
You're not gonna
that
get it.
doesn't make quarterback that big of a need.
No, you're right.
No, you're not getting 4
If
or
he
5.
plays at that kind of level.
See, but what the worst position for the Browns to be in next year is if he plays decent. Because now you're sitting there thinking, okay, he didn't play bad, he didn't play great. What do we do?
They'll trade him.
They might. I think that the
Because
Browns are better
he's
off.
not
I would rather
their
him.
guy.
You're right. I would rather him either A, go out there and completely suck it up and get replaced by Campbell, or go out there and have a Pro Bowl season. I would rather. It's got to be one of the two. Because if he plays in between, and the Browns go like you said, 8-8,
He'll be gone.
what do you do?
They'll look for a quarterback. No doubt in my mind. He would have to excel in this offense. You would have to see great strides made. Other than that, because he's not their guy. He's 30 years old. They're going to be on the hunt for a quarterback, and I think that's why those extra draft picks were made.
That's my only
explanation.
I think it's difficult to get rid of a guy who could go out there. Let's say he goes out there and throws passes for 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 picks, and they go 8-8. It's hard to replace a guy like that because
Not
that's a
hard.
pretty good year.
That's still not hard to replace a guy like that.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to replace a guy like
If
that.
he's young, it's hard to replace a guy like that. If he's 30 fucking years old, it's not
No,
hard to
well,
replace a guy
I
like
see.
that.
I disagree because then you're going to be talking about starting over. If you go 8-8 next year, you're going to be expected to go 10-6 the year after that.
Well,
and it's going to be hard
No,
to
no,
do
no,
that
I'm saying
if you
you're
plug in
replacing him.
a rookie
Let's
quarterback.
put it in this perspective.
You're saying you're replacing him.
Let's say Brandon Whedon goes 8-8. He throws for 4,000 yards. He throws 22 touchdowns and 15.
Oh my God, like that's going to happen, but that's
And they go 8-8. If there was, and I'm going to time shift it a little bit back to this past draft. If there was an Andrew Luck and RG3 in that draft, would you not go after them because Brandon Whedon? You think he's got a better he's younger, got a bigger upside than what Brandon Whedon does.
nope, you're gone for the quarterback.
Yes, you're going to go after
You're
him.
gone for
You're
the
gonna go get him.
quarterback.
Okay.
You're gone for the
That's-
But then
quarterback.
what do you
what I'm
do with
saying.
Wheaton?
You let him
Okay.
start the next
He
year.
can be the backup quarterback. He can start the next
He
year.
can start the next
and
year.
Kind of bleed
Well,
in Bridgewater.
See,
or
but
whatever.
I think if he puts up those kind of numbers, I think he would be in a situation kind of like Alex Smith, where he would be desired. You could
Possible.
trade him.
Well, possibly.
Well, here's the thing. If he generates trade interest, fine, you do that. But if not, you still go after a good quarterback. There's one available, which next year there's going to be some good quarterbacks available. You go after them. Get
But are
them
you
back out there
convinced-
for another year as a better quarterback.
Are
like
you
this
convinced?
kid.
And well, it's tough to. I'm not even going to ask it because you can't really answer it. So,
I can answer.
well, are you convinced that somebody like a Teddy Bridgewater is going to be a? I mean, obviously, there's no such thing as a lock,
You
but
don't
as
know
close
that.
to it.
You don't
You
know.
knew with Andrew Luck and RG3 that you were going to get a damn good quarterback.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, you
No,
did.
you didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, you didn't.
Yes, you did.
Nope.
Yes, you did.
Nope.
Well,
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with
obviously, he's going to have another year of college in order to evaluate him.
That's why I'm saying it's hard to answer that question now.
Well, if he
because
comes out and has-
Bridgewater
if he
goes out
comes out
and
and
has
has a good year,
if he goes
then
out and
yeah.
has a Heisman type year,
Then yeah.
you're going to feel damn good about
You're
it.
damn right.
If he goes out and has a mediocre year, not so much. But I think it's just such a risk to replace somebody like a Whedon if he were to go out and have that 4,000 yard year you talked about. It would be such a risk to replace him with a rookie.
Who said you're replacing him? You give yourself
Or
the opportunity
bring in
of
a
drafting
rookie.
to bring him in. Then
Okay,
we can get another
but
year,
you're really,
and that's it.
really though you are replacing him because even if you keep him and you use all this firepower to trade up and get a Bridgewater or somebody like that, 'cause if you finish 8-8, you're going to be drafting 16, 17, 18
Okay.
True.
around there. So you're going to have to give up more than if you were drafting 6 or 7.
Well,
Yeah.
So-
you have to feel
But-
as a
Confident.
scouting department.
Confident.
Yes.
You have to feel comfortable. I mean, Washington gave up a boatload to get RG3.
Yes, they did.
Now, did RG3 have a great year last year? Yes.
Is it going to continue? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, nobody can. I mean, Andrew Luck could blow his arm out tomorrow.
But Washington didn't have a quarterback that played pretty well the year before.
They drafted 2 quarterbacks.
Right.
They drafted Cousins.
Right.
Well, why did
They-
they bother drafting Cousins if they thought?
But what I'm saying is, you have a quarterback who plays better than average. You're going to blow all these draft picks and risk the future of this franchise to bring in another quarterback? To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
It does if he has the French word potential.
And
The higher upside, the youth,
So then if that guy comes in and busts out, you're going to look like a big dick, Ross.
Well, you always do.
Well, you have to have your convictions. You have to have
Courtney
you have
Brown.
convictions.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, it's different. My thing is, it's different. If you have a quarterback on your roster that throws for 3,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 18 picks, and you go 5-11, it's different if you risk everything to get a quarterback in that situation.
Well, we're putting Brandon Wheaton on 8-18. We don't know. We don't even know if they're going to be.
And you're also looking at, if you have a kid that's 24, 45 years old, yeah, it's stupid to go get another quarterback. You got a guy that's 30 years old, yeah, it's a different
I just
story.
think, I personally think that it's a really big risk that is not worth taking in that situation.
No, quite honestly,
I think the risk is worth it if, and you're just going by Brandon Wheaton having a
Yeah, you're saying he's gonna have a good year.
statistically having a decent year. He'll be on the upside or overside of 30, which
Yep.
I'm not saying is old,
Right.
it is the NFL.
but I just he's one, and you can say this about, he's not their guy, and I think that
Neither is
that-
Trent Richards. Should we be getting rid of him?
No, it's a different story.
Is it?
Yes.
Is
Very
it
much
really?
so. Yes, it is.
What if Brandon Wheaton goes out there and has a pretty good year, and Trent Richardson goes out there and rushes for 850 yards, averages 3.1 yards a touch, and doesn't
If
have a
Trent
great year? Is he
Richardson-
on the block because he's not one of their guys?
If Trent Richardson stays healthy and produces like he already has, that's a regime, quite honestly, had they been drafted, they probably would have drafted him anyway.
I agree.
They probably would have drafted him anyway.
I agree. But
That's the point.
But I mean, I don't know. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
because every team is looking for the quarterback. If you don't have a quarterback, you are not going to win.
You're right.
Not in
No,
NFL.
you're absolutely right
You're
about
not
that.
winning.
Do you think that Brandon Whedon has the potential to be a Joe Flacco type of player? Because I don't think Joe Flacco's a great quarterback. I think Joe Flacco's a good quarterback,
He wins.
and he's won, but he's also had the privilege of being on some damn good teams that are very talented.
Well, he wins.
Well, I don't. It's hard to argue. Yeah, I'll give you the fact that Joe Flacco's been on good teams. Joe Flacco has taken them to the playoffs every year
Yeah.
since he's been in the league,
5 years.
Uh,
Whedon's been there for 1.
and he's in an organization that's, quite frankly, they know what the hell they're doing.
Right.
It'll be a situation that Pittsburgh will face in a couple of years when Roethlisberger is 34 or so.
Yeah.
They're going to have to look for another quarterback.
Sure.
They drafted Landry Jones.
Yeah.
Who could
You
be
may have
the one.
already addressed that quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, granted, they got him in the 4th round.
Yeah.
It wasn't a maneuver of 2 or 3 picks to move up in order
Right.
to get him. I get that.
Yeah.
But you have to look ahead. Now, in Cleveland's case, it's all going to depend on Whedon. If Whedon has an 8-8 season, I don't think that's going to be good enough for them.
Nope. But I don't think.
Now, is it going to be all his fault? I wouldn't say that.
No. Now, in all honesty,
Real quick, so we
I
can
don't-
close out this segment.
I don't think they expect him to do any better than 8-8. If he can actually get to 8-8, I don't think they expect him to do better.
But they did look at this draft and say, you know what, we're going to go with Whedon because we don't like anybody else.
And I think,
Oh, there's no quarterback
and I also
opportunity
think,
taken.
I also think that they're going with Whedon because they feel like maybe to some extent he deserves another shot. Because all things considered, Brandon Whedon did not have a terrible year last year.
That's what I'm saying. If he was 22, we wouldn't have the discussion.
Right.
I don't think we would.
You're right. Miami's not having the discussion. Like I said, Tannehill and Whedon's numbers are very similar.
Well,
Tannehill, I mean, how many games did the Dolphins win? They didn't win too many more than the Browns because they picked, what,
No, I think they
a
went.
couple picks behind Cleveland? 12.
Did they go 7-9? 6-10?
I think they picked 12. Cleveland picked, what, 6?
Yeah, so they were probably 7-9. So they may have won.
A couple games more.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for this segment of the Sports Rock Show.
Rock.
Next, we will get into the rock and roll.